It's fall, one of my favorite times of the year. All the holidays are here, and maybe you have some pumpkins left over from the holidays, from Thanksgiving, whether you purchased them or maybe you grew them in your garden. So what we're going to learn today is what you can do with these pumpkins instead of taking them and putting them in your compost or maybe even throwing them in the trash. You have different varieties of pumpkins that we can use, and we're going to recycle those and make some puree today. You're in the garden with Patrick. Today I'm going to show you how to make easy pumpkin puree for baked goods such as breads, muffins, or even cake. So there are various ways of making your puree. What we're going to do today is we're going to bake our pumpkin. Again, you could boil your pumpkin. There's all kinds of different methods, but what we're going to do today, which I feel is the best because it adds a little bit of flavor to your pumpkin, is to bake it. So you basically just need a few items. A cutting board. We're going to use some baking pans lined with parchment paper and a sharp knife. We're going to use our spoon to take out the seeds, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you would feel better about washing your pumpkin first, you can do that. But again, we're only going to use the inside portion of the pumpkin. So this is a similar method of what you would do with, like, say, spaghetti squash. So we would do the same type of method. So same thing with the size of your pumpkin. You can use a small pumpkin. Those are more flavorful than this larger pumpkin. So depending on what you have, though, again, I would just use what you have. This is what we had left over from Thanksgiving, and so we're gonna use that and kind of make some puree from that versus throwing it in the composter, or even worse yet, throw it in the trash. Okay, so what we basically do first, you're just going to cut your pumpkin in half. So just be careful. It does take a little bit of time to cut this. And of course, please be careful. All right. So the first thing we're going to look at is our pumpkin here, and you're going to see inside it's got this membrane and it's got the seeds. If you want to, you can save those seeds, plant your pumpkins for next year. So we're just going to take that out and put that into our container. You can use your spoon, or you can also just use your hands and just pull that out. Probably a lot easier and a lot quicker. All right, so once you've got the seeds out, then you'll have a cavity like this that is empty. Don't worry so much about the little strands. Those are fine. So it'll look something like this, okay? Now, in this particular pumpkin, as I cut it, if you see here, there is an area that started rotting. So this portion of the pumpkin we're not going to use this. So we're just going to toss this into our composter. But be careful on what your pumpkin looks like. So once you get inside. But if you see here on the outside, it looked fine, right? So this is the same spot here inside. So it started rotting inside, which again sometimes happens with these pumpkins. So once you do that, now there's a couple of things you could do with your pumpkin. If you'd like, you want to just have this like this, or if I would recommend, it would cook a little quicker if you just cut a little bit more instead of just in half, maybe trying to use a little bit more of the surface area to cook. Okay, so something like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this portion of the pumpkin. You can, if you want, put some olive oil or something on here, but normally I just take this and we just put this on your parchment paper, face down. You're going to see what happens as it starts cooking. We're going to put it in our preheated oven of 350 degrees, and it's going to cook for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on, you know, how much and how thick and how many you have in the oven. So keep an eye on that. Again, I would not season it with anything, salt or pepper or any of that kind of stuff. Unless you're going to actually eat it, you could probably eat this too. There's some recipes that you could do, but basically this is all we're going to do for right now for our puree. Before we put our pumpkin in the oven to bake, we're going to use some of these seeds that we have left over, and I'm going to show you how we can use this for actually baking, and you can eat them, or we're going to also save a few for next year, and we're going to plant some more pumpkin using the pumpkin here. So I'll show you two different ways of using your pumpkin seeds instead of just throwing those out also. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll put a link to that video in the description box below. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pumpkin and we're going to put it in a 400-degree preheated oven and cook that for about 30 to 45 minutes. You know when your pumpkin is completely cooked when you can stick a fork in it and it goes all the way through very easily. So we know that this is complete, and we're ready to take that pumpkin and make some puree. So essentially there's two ways that you can remove the pulp from the pumpkin. The first I want to show you, see that stringy membrane that we were talking about that you don't really have to worry about? That comes off pretty easy. So if you don't want to have that in your puree, which again sometimes it doesn't go all the way as far as when you're pureeing, you can just remove it this way or with a spoon, okay? But the easiest, the first way that you can do that is you can spoon your pumpkin out this way, and that's pretty simple, pretty easy way to do that. And you have your puree, and then you'll just put that in your container. I'm using a container for the food processor. So you want to get all that puree as much as you can. That's one way. The second method that is actually a lot easier, and you're going to get a lot of the pumpkin as much as you can, is you just start to peel this away from the skin. You peel that skin away, and you see here, then you maximize that. So you can have a little bit still here on that, and you can just pull that off. It is a little bit warm, okay? But again, you can pretty easily do that. But again, it's very, very simple. You just pull this right away. Once you remove the skin, again, this is pretty hot, then you have pretty much your pumpkin. You're going to place that in your food processor, or you can use a blender also, and we're going to start blending this up. You can also slice the outside of the skin. You're not losing a lot of that pulp. So there's different methods of doing the same thing. The bottom line is you're just going to remove that skin from that part of the pumpkin, and then once you remove all of the skin, then you can begin to puree. All right, so take a look at this. We've pureed our pumpkin now, and looks wonderful. Nice orange color, tastes amazing. And so what am I going to do with the scraps? Of course, we're going to take these and we're going to put them in our compost. Now what I like to do for storage is I always like to pre-measure. That way it makes it very simple for you when you're able to make something. It'll call for 1 cup or 2 cups of the pumpkin. But again, so I'm going to use, make sure you label it, but we're going to put this in an airtight container. I'm going to put 2 cups in this particular one. So I'm measuring that out more or less about 2 cups. And then we're going to put that in the freezer. So we'll just make sure that that's in there. And I might even put maybe, 1 cup, make this into 1 cup and freeze them in 1 cup increments. That way people can just take out a cup if you need to. If you're going to make a pie, usually it's 2 pounds or 16 ounces. This is 2 cups. I said 2 pounds, I meant 2 cups, 16 ounces. So you could make a pumpkin pie from this, 1 pumpkin pie with 16 ounces of the pumpkin puree. And again, if you put that in a different container, 1 cup at a time, you can make your smoothies, you can add that to oatmeal, you can make pancakes. There's all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things that you can use with the puree. And remember, the puree is packed full of vitamins and minerals. It has magnesium, zinc, and it's an anti-inflammatory. So this is one of those things that you certainly don't want to not take advantage of. And I want you to eat more of this wonderful, wonderful puree from pumpkin. I'd like to know how you use your leftover pumpkin. Drop a comment in the box below and let me know how you're going to be using your leftover pumpkin this year. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you found some value in this video, hit that like button and that'll tell YouTube that this is of some value and good content, and they'll be able to spread that and share that with others. Until next time, happy gardening.